Channel open. Welcome back to WeeklyTrek, a proud member of the Tricorder Transmissions podcast network. I am your host, Alex Perry.
What's today's date? The date.
Today's show was recorded on October the 16th, 2020, and is current through the Star Trek Discovery episode, The Hope Is You Part 1. So beware of spoilers, though, given we do have one Lower Deck story this week, and that show is only available in North America right now, I will be noting in the episode description the time codes for any Lower Decks discussion, so you can skip over it if you choose. All right, let's get into the show.
Good day, Voyager, and welcome to A Briefing with Neelix. It's a catchy title, isn't it?
WeeklyTrek is a 30-minute news show covering the biggest stories from the Star Trek franchise. We are in a new golden age of Star Trek. There are 6 television shows in production, possibly more on the way, and enough merchandise to fill the Bajoran wormhole. So stick with me and I'll help you sort the real facts from a lot of the Dominion propaganda that you'll find online. But I can't do this alone. And my guest this week is one of my favorite returning guests. It's Jenn Tifft. Jenn, welcome back to WeeklyTrek.
Aw, thanks, Alex. It's so great to be back talking with you again. I love it.
Well, Jenn, you know the drill. I want to know something that's got you feeling good about Star Trek at the moment. What's got you moving at Warp 10?
Oh, Alex. That's a very big question this week because
plenty to choose from, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, do I go with last week, the exciting Lower Decks finale? Or do I go with this week, the exciting Discovery premiere? And of course, the answer is all of it. And I'm sure we're going to talk about all of it. So what I wanted to mention for this is actually a book.
Okay, let's do it.
On Twitter, Justin Ozer, a big Star Trek book fan, mentioned a book that was about the Starfleet Corps of Engineers.
Ah, yes, the SCE book series.
Why did nobody tell me this was a thing? This is a series of books about Starfleet engineers just solving engineering problems. And they're short stories, which I love. And I read that tweet, figured, just realized they exist and ordered the first book right away, and it just came today, and so I'm very excited about it. And I'm reading the back cover, and Sonia Gomez is in this book.
Is the main character, no less.
Oh my God, I love her. Why did I not know this was a thing?
Yeah, so this is a fun little series of books. The number of stories is probably about 70 of them. As I recall, they were mostly collected into paperback reprints.
Yeah.
They did 5 or 6 stories at a time. I think the last maybe 10 or so were still only available in ebook format, but most of them are out on paperback.
Yeah, there's 13 volumes of them.
That's right. And it was this experiment that Simon & Schuster were running actually in the late 90s with the ebook format, where they were one of the first companies to ever kind of produce ebook original stories. Before Kindle, before any of that was even a gleam in anybody's eye, they were doing these Starfleet Corps of Engineers short stories. And yeah, there's a bunch of them. It was very fun. I hadn't read them all. I think I've read the first 4 or 5 volumes that they put out. There's even ones where they do the Starfleet Corps of Engineers during the TOS era. So there's a trilogy of stories, as I recall, called the Foundation Trilogy or something like that, where they go back in time to the 23rd century and you see, the organization back during the Kirk era as well. It's a fun set of books.
So we're talking about engineers here.
Yes, excuse me, TOS, those old scientists. Yeah, the Scotty era.
Yes. Oh man, this is right up my alley. So I'm very excited about cracking open this book tonight and getting started on that. So that's got me everything's got me excited about Star Trek, but particularly right this moment. What came in the mail today?
Oh yeah, that's a great one. Well, the thing I'm feeling good about Star Trek this week is I am still buzzing about the fact that Kate Mulgrew is returning to Star Trek.
Yes.
How could I only talk about it in one episode of WeeklyTrek? I had to hold it over again for a second to remind you all that Kate Mulgrew is returning to Star Trek in Star Trek Prodigy, and it is so exciting. The more I dwell upon it, I've been watching some Voyager over the last week and, closing my eyes and listening to Janeway speak, and I am absolutely thrilled to bits that she is coming back and that Kate Mulgrew is reprising the role, and cannot wait for what they have in store for Prodigy.
I am busting with excitement over this news. And she's starring. They said the star of Star Trek Prodigy.
Yep, they did.
This isn't just a cameo. So this is Like, this is a Janeway series. And I love the way that they announced it too. Kurtzman's introduction and everything that Kate Mulgrew said about it. They're really approaching this from such a reverent place of Janeway's history and Janeway's importance, and also what this means as being the first series to be meant for younger people. And it's so thrilling. And I mean, I cried during the announcement. I have to admit. I could just, because I'm so grateful to get Janeway back. She means so much to me and everybody. But also just knowing, she said something about, I was the first woman captain, and now I'm going to be the first children's captain.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And that, oh my gosh, that just made me bawl, because what a perfect character to be the one to shepherd these, we don't know anything about them, but these young people in
this
the show.
Group of lawless teens.
The lawless teens. They needed Janeway to help mold them into young adults. And oh my gosh, the possibilities are endless with this. And it's everything. Just the more I hear about Prodigy, the more excited I am about it. And Janeway's back. I'm going to cry again just thinking about it.
Oh, it is. I mean, cycle back to a little over 2 years to, let's say, 1 week before STLV 2018. I mean, we knew at that point that Kurtzman had signed this big franchise deal and there was going to be more shows on the way. But could you ever have imagined that would have meant you would have gotten Picard back, that you would have gotten Janeway back, that you would have gotten Riker and Troy and aboard the USS Titan and 7 of 9 and a funny animated comedy that hit it out of the park and
all these new characters that I now love and can't do without.
Exactly. I mean, what a 2-year ride it has been with no stopping. I mean, Kurtzman said this week, we'll talk about it too much in the news today. We'll probably talk about it more next week, but they have plans through 2027 for Star Trek. So that's at least another 7 years that they have mapped out of what they want to do with these shows.
Oh, how lucky are we?
Well, speaking of lucky, let's turn to the week's top stories.
There's a war going on, and I'm a reporter.
Star Trek Discovery.
Season 4.
It's official.
We are back.
November 2nd.
Production begins.
Oh my goodness, I am so excited to be back on set.
I am looking forward to the one thing I always look most forward to when we get to come back for another season of Star Trek Discovery, and that is to be reunited with my family again, the Trek family, the Discovery family.
It's going to be great to see everybody, and I think we're going to really love on each other.
To be able to at least be in the same room again, even if we can't hug each other right away. I don't know how it's all going to work, but I can't wait.
I'm so excited to be giving you a season 4 and watch season 3. That's what I would say. That's what I'm really excited about.
Yes, you heard it. Star Trek Discovery will be returning for a 4th season. If you thought Strange New Worlds or Picard's 2nd season were a badly kept secret, they had nothing on Discovery's 4th season, which Alex Kurtzman began teasing or indeed talking openly about as early as April of this year. And there isn't long before cameras officially start rolling. As you heard, Discovery Season 4 starts shooting only 2 weeks from the day this episode drops on November the 2nd. And from the very sparse, new house-looking surroundings behind series stars Sonequa Martin-Green and Doug Jones, I think it might be the case that they are already in their Toronto accommodations for the season ahead. Sonequa Martin-Green was sitting in front of a very large, but very bare and very clean bookcase. Alex Kurtzman talked in a recent interview with the Hollywood Reporter podcast about how lessons they were learning on non-Star Trek shows he was producing will be applied towards getting Star Trek back in front of the camera in a COVID-safe way, and I can only imagine how logistically complex that has been, and I wish the cast and crew all the very best of luck in keeping everyone safe moving forward. Well, Jen, it is official, Discovery Season 4. How are you feeling?
Oh, I mean, it's great to know officially.
Right, it's not like, it's not that much of a surprise.
Right. Oh, but yeah, but it's always a relief to know that there's definitely more coming down the road. They deserve it. It's a wonderful show. It's awesome. And I'm excited. I'm excited to get through it right now. I'm focused on season 3, but I also like the timing of this because I like knowing now I can watch this season full in the knowledge that I don't have to say goodbye to these characters at the end. Because so often now with the streaming services, they're like they drop all at once and you binge them or whatever. You don't know. Like, is this the end? Are they going to pick it up again? Or is they're going to leave it at this cliffhanger or what? I've been hurt so many times.
Oh, yes.
So it is a nice relief to know for sure that we get to see these characters again and have this story continue. And I don't have to worry about when they leave this. Is this going to be it? Or is this, we have it. It's coming. We're so lucky. And like you said, I just really, really hope that they are able to keep everyone safe because, I don't mind waiting. I'd rather wait, and I know it's coming. So that's good enough for me, like delay, whatever delays they need to take to make sure everybody's safe I'm down with. So, but it's great news.
Yes, at TrekCore, we were talking this morning. We were taking bets about how long it was going to be until they announced the renewal for Star Trek Discovery Season 4. And one of our editors said, I think it's either going to come today or Monday. And he ended up being right because 2 hours later, the notice came through that there would be the 3:00 announcement of the renewal of the show. So,
he might have had some inside info.
Yeah, right.
Did he bet any money?
Yeah, we should have, right? Yeah, I mean, I think it's just great that the show is returning. They are moving in a very interesting direction in season 3. I will confess, because it's tough for me to avoid not acknowledging it, that I have actually seen the first 4 episodes of the season.
Lucky.
And so I'm avoiding doing Star Trek Discovery wishes or theories in the theory or wish section because I actually know a little bit about what happens, but I'm not going to say anything, no spoilers, except to say that I really enjoyed them. And actually the season premiere was probably my least favorite of the 4 episodes I have seen, which shows that if you really enjoyed the season premiere, you will enjoy the episodes that come after it even more. But yeah, this is tremendous. I mean, this is the sort of flagship show of this new era of Star Trek, and I'm very, very pleased to see it continue.
Yeah, and I kind of think too, I mean, this is almost kind of like a new pilot for Discovery. And they're a brand new series now, basically, what's past is prologue, and we're in a new timeline, a fresh start, and for them to have more than one. This is kind of like the first season again, almost. You need more time with them and with this new 33rd century world that we're now thrust into, and it's so exciting and so great.
Yeah, and they, Star Trek's in 3rd seasons, right? When well, with the exception of TOS, commonly acknowledged as being at least for TNG, the time when the show, sort of graduated into being comfortable in its own skin, and as a result, became a good show. And I think I have only seen 4 episodes. You have only seen 1 episode, but from what I have seen to date, I think the show is coming into its own, from a comfort perspective, and sort of has I think a much clearer idea of what kind of show it is this season. And frankly, that is obvious from the season premiere. I'm not revealing anything at all by saying that, because you already know that from having seen the first episode, but it really is, I think, much more sort of comfortable with itself.
Yes. Even just in this first episode, Michael Burnham herself feels more comfortable in her own skin and more into her own. So, she's graduating, and, the rest of the crew, I'm sure, are also, and everyone in the production side of it. And it's so exciting.
And I think, it matters so much that the main character sort of, has that wind at her back, because she is the series lead in a way that, other shows are more of an ensemble. And there is an ensemble element to Discovery as well, but it has always been the Burnham show, right? I mean, that was how it's constructed.
That's her journey.
Exactly. It's her journey. And so the show itself sort of reflects where she is in the journey. If she's in a very sort of tortured, conflicted place, then the show itself feels quite tortured and conflicted. And I think we've seen that at multiple points across the series today. Well, following last week's exceptionally well-received season 1 finale for Star Trek Lower Decks, there have been a number of interesting interviews published with Mike McMahon. This week, we'll talk about an interview that he did with Variety following the season finale, in which he teases more about the 2nd season of Lower Decks. McMahon confirms that the Titan will be one of the primary locations of the show when we start start season 2, and that Jonathan Frakes' Riker will reappear. And while McMahon did say that Marina Sirtis' Troy will not be in the second season, he did strongly hint at other TNG cameos, saying, feels like a pretty good chance of it. McMahon also hints that season 2 might not see a reset for Boimler back to the rank of ensign now that he's a lieutenant junior grade aboard the Titan. He said, the theme of the show is, where do bridge crews come from? What happens when you start ranking up? What did you learn as a lower deck officer that you start taking there? That's all stuff that we tackle second season and hopefully beyond. McMahon also promises that, despite no explicit LGBTQ representation in season 1, that's something they're looking to correct in season 2. And in addition, he peeled back the onion a bit on some of the topical relevance of No Small Parts and the decision to bring back the Packlids. He said, we needed a villain that kind of matched the re-rise of fascism. This thing we thought we'd nipped in the bud is back. That's why we wanted to take a character that was kind of a joke from the TNG episodes and say, what if, because they were a joke, people didn't take them seriously enough and they got too powerful and now they are actually dangerous and people are paying for it with their lives for not taking them seriously. Wow, Jen, this is a packed interview dissecting a very cool episode of Star Trek Lower Decks. What would you like to see in Lower Decks Season 2?
Oh, man.
I'm hitting you with all the hard questions today.
No, that's a broad question. Oh, so much more of the same, more of the same. I think that it's such a good mix of comedy, of heart, of character growth and development and references and I think they've got a really great balance. Let's see, if there's something I'd like to see them do, is I'd like to see more mix-ups of different characters working with each other, because we got a lot of Boimler Mariner and we got a lot of Tendi Rutherford, which I love, but I want to see everybody mixed up and see how they all play off each other and see more of that instead of just the main two groupings that we got most of. I'd like to see that. Oh, it's such a... Lower Decks is probably my favorite so far of all of this era of Trek. I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed it. It's so good.
Yeah, and I talked about this last week, but sort of, one of the things I had said I was interested to learn more about was the extent to which Lower Decks was sort of a conventional animated comedy in the way that, it would sort of reset itself back to whatever the steady state was for that show, like The Simpsons does, right? Where they're always the same age, despite the fact it's been on for, 35 years at this point. And it does sound like from this interview and some of the other things that McMahon has said that they are not sort of thinking about Lower Decks in that vein, that there will be growth and change for the characters and their circumstances. And that, I don't think it's going to be the case that Boimler is going to stay on the Titan for the whole season, because I think the show is about the Cerritos. And so I think it ultimately will end up back on that ship, but he may end up back there. I think it, as a lieutenant junior grade. I don't think it's the kind of thing where like by the end of the season premiere of season 2, they're all ensigns again back on the Cerritos. I think we might see some change.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I think it will stay on the Cerritos mostly. You're right. I mean, he'll come back from the Titan somehow, but I agree with you. I think he'll still keep his promotion. Hey, when you're a lower decker, when you're the bottom of the bottom, there's nowhere to go but up.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And then they have a lot of levels within the Cerritos itself to grow and change and get promoted without it being weird that they haven't gone onto a different ship. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think there's a lot of room for that, and it'll happen. I like that. It doesn't need to be like strictly, like you said, Simpsons. Nobody ages. They're just always ensigns. A little growth is good. And it's still, it is an animated adult comedy, but it's also Star Trek too. And that's very Star Trek. Even we had like Riker, turned down. How many times did he turn down being a captain?
Many times.
And we might, but if that kind of thing happens in Lower Decks, it's a Riker reference,
Right, exactly.
They can do that. It makes sense within the context of the show. But who knows? It's I can't wait to see what happens. I'm in love with all these characters now. I love them. I love the bridge crew too. Like not just our lower deck. We're talking about the lower deckers, but the bridge crew. And they even they did make a Riker joke like that, because she called Ransom when they were listening. They were overhearing Boimler and Mariner's conversation.
A fly trapped in amber.
Yes. That's great. Yeah, so you can work around anything they want to do with it.
And I think, one of the things you said when I asked, what did you want from season 2? And you said more of the same. For a lot of Star Trek shows, somebody wouldn't necessarily want that. But I have to remind myself that, with Lower Decks, it was only 10 25-minute episodes. So really, they've only done about, 5 or 6 regular episodes of Star Trek to date, which, I mean, given everything they accomplished over those 10 episodes is a tremendous feat. But it still is it's not a lot of Star Trek when you really think about it.
Yeah, when you put it that way, there's actually been a tremendous amount of character growth. I mean, with Mariner especially, with the other lower deckers, and I mean, heck, even Captain Freeman. Mm-hmm. Wow, that it really hasn't been that much lengthwise. There hasn't been that much, but wow, they've managed to pack in within that short amount of time.
Yeah, it's like, what's the 6th episode of TNG? It's probably something like Lonely Among Us or Justice and you wouldn't, by the time you get to that episode, it's not like you're feeling that level of investment with those TNG characters that you do with the Lower Decks characters. And honestly, with any of the characters from any of the shows, right? Deep Space Nine, Voyager, TOS, they're all still relatively new to you after 4 or 5 episodes. But, Lower Decks ran through a whole season in that amount of airtime.
Yeah, how did they do that? I am really invested in these characters. When Shax died, I was legitimately I know this character and I'm very sad that he died.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I guess I was too when Tasha Yar, by the time Tasha Yar died too.
But still, that was 20 episodes.
Yeah. Oh, you're right.
So that was the equivalent of 4 seasons of Lower Decks.
Oh man, you're right. That's so funny.
Well, Star Trek Discovery's newest star got herself a glowing profile in the New York Post this week. And I'm not talking about David Ayala, Blue Dabario, Ian Alexander, or any of the other newcomers to Discovery's 3rd season. No, I am talking about the Queen, the diva as described by Ayala. I am talking about Grudge Cat. Yes, we were introduced to Book's cat Grudge this week in the Discovery season opener, who is played by 2 male twin Maine Coon cats named Liu and Durban. We wanted a really big, fluffy, substantial beast of a cat, said executive producer Michelle Paradise. The fact that there was a big, gorgeous cat that also had a twin in case he didn't want to work one of the days was a selling point. Paradise said of working with cats that working with any animal, they're not always willing to do what you want them to do when you want them to do it, but described Liu and Durban as having, quote, really mellow personalities. Exactly how big are these 2 fluffy Maine Coons? Well, they are 40 inches long and 18 pounds each. For comparison, they are about twice the size and weight of my own cat Nutmeg, who occasionally guest stars in the background of this very podcast. In the interview, David Ayala also talks at length about building his relationship with the 2 cats to portray Book and Grudge's relationship throughout the season. As a cat owner and lover, I'm thrilled that we have cat representation on Star Trek Discovery Season 3. So Jen, please tell me why Grudge is your favorite character in all of Star Trek ever.
Grudge is beautiful, a beautiful cat. I think it was a perfect casting choice. One, to get him a cat. Even in the first episode, you could tell that fits his character. And her name is Grudge. That's just wonderful.
It's incredible.
Oh my God. But also just the particular cat that they picked. This huge, wild, unkempt, it's not a domesticated, it is, but it's not like Spot is a very, very Data cat.
Correct. Just a pure standard short-haired tabby
cat.
that everybody has.
Yeah, this cat's like a wild part of nature, just like Book is. So it's a wild part of nature, when we see him with his awesome powers, nature powers, and it's just such a fitting pet for him. And I love when the bad guy's beating him up, trying, you know what I mean, and saying things about Grudge, and he's like, "You keep your name down." And she's a queen. I just love him defending his cat like that. It's so wonderful. And oh, what a character Book is. I'm already such a gigantic fan of Book. And Grudge, of course, Grudge. You can tell us, why is Grudge your favorite Star Trek character ever?
Yeah, Book's great. I mean, it's always a little, anytime there's an announcement of new kind of actors and characters joining a show, sometimes it's always with a bit of trepidation because it changes the chemistry and the dynamic of the actors in the show. But just in that first episode, David's performance is incredible and the character's very, charismatic, and the chemistry he has with Burnham is terrific as well. So I'm really looking forward to seeing where things go with that character.
Yeah, I love them together. I love his whole deal feel of just being, I mean, even I'll talk about the powers also besides his powers, like just the fact that his cause is animal conservation. And that's wonderful. He's a space pirate or smuggler or whatever, but for such a wonderful cause. That's such a fun little dichotomy to have. And then when you add on the nature powers, I don't know what to call them, he's one with nature in such a powerful, magical, beautiful way. And that is so cool. And I want to learn more about that. I want to learn more. Like, is he an alien and that's typical, or is he like special? Because he says something in the first episode about genes, and once in a generation or once in a while, someone like him comes along, I think is the comment he makes about his family. So maybe that's not like part of his alien species powers. Maybe he's unique. I don't know, but I can't wait to find out. I think it's so beautiful. Normally when there's a character with nature powers, usually like in a superhero context or like some kind of fantasy novel, it's usually a female, and they come at it from the angle of like, like a mother nature kind of thing, like she's mothering all the nature that she's interacting with, and giving those powers to someone like Book, and so someone that has that kind of Maine Coon cat as the embodiment of his spirit, and giving him those powers is so interesting, and I cannot wait to see what they do with that. Oh, he's such a fascinating character already, and we've only known him for one episode, and he's so great. I almost forgot that we didn't get to see everybody else. Where are all my other beloved characters?
I know what's going on. We'll find out. I have a feeling they're going to do the opposite to us in the next episode. Like we'll see just the Discovery and not see Michael and Book. And lastly, in other unsurprising news, we finally received word this week that Star Trek Las Vegas 2020 will not be moving ahead this year. The convention, which had been rescheduled to December due to the COVID-19 pandemic, has now been cancelled. Creation's annual Star Trek convention will return to the Rio Hotel next year, taking place August 11th to 15th, 2021. But there are some potentially big changes in store for the convention when it does return. The show is Star Trek Las Vegas no longer. Creation have said that CBS will not be a partner in the convention next year, and as a result, it will no longer be an official Star Trek convention. Instead, STLV is being rebranded as the 55-year mission convention in honor of the 55th anniversary of Star Trek in 2021. Does this mean CBS will announce a new official convention partner for Star Trek? Quite possibly. CBS has worked with Reed Pop in 2016 to put on the Star Trek Mission New York convention, and they do work with other vendors for the Star Trek cruise and the Destination Star Trek conventions in Europe. I have little doubt that news about a new official Star Trek convention is coming, but with the COVID-19 pandemic, my only question is whether it will start up in 2021 or 2022. Jen, I know you've never been to STLV, but we've talked in the past about how you thought next year might be your year. Does this news change the likelihood that you'll be in Vegas next summer, COVID permitting? And is there anything specific you'd like to see out of a new official Star Trek convention?
Okay, well, I'm definitely, if COVID-wise, if everything's fine, I'm definitely planning on being there next August. I've been looking forward to it, and I just can't wait. I really, really, really hope that things are okay for big gatherings by then. And yeah, what I'd like to see from an official convention, though, is closer to me, selfishly.
Same.
Because I'm
East Coast, baby.
Yeah. STAC. That's what I'm hoping for, Atlantic City. Because I got a place to stay down the shore. That would be wonderful for me. But no, I've been to conventions, just never the official STLV. And this was, my plan was always for next year to be my year to go. And hopefully I can still do that. And hopefully everything will go off without a hitch, and we'll all be back to some version of normal by then, I hope.
Yeah, my guess is it's going to be the more things change, the more they stay the same type of situation. I mean, CBS no longer being an official partner for, I'm still going to call it STLV because it's just the easiest thing to say, but it is going to have an impact. I mean, in previous years, there will be no Sir Patrick Stewart announcements about returning to Star Trek at a non-official Star Trek convention. You're probably not going to get the same sort of product announcements, the prop galleries that they've had the last few years won't be there. And if a show is filming at the time, over the last few years, CBS has sort of moved heaven and earth to get cast members to the show. So like I think I seem to recall 2 years ago, they chartered a plane for the Discovery cast to like get to Vegas and then turn around to go right back to set after they were done with their autographs and photo ops. And that won't happen if it's an unofficial convention. But, it doesn't change the fact that it's still a great opportunity to get together with all of your friends. And, most of these actors are from previous shows who, of course they will continue showing up. And even the actors from the new shows will show up as long as they aren't shooting and can get away from whatever it is they're doing in order to be there. And then, the idea of having a new official convention is an exciting one. Creation has a long track record of doing conventions, but, maybe aren't the most innovative company in the world around doing large events. They're sort of very set in their ways. And I think their sort of model has not changed much over the last 3-4 decades since they started doing this. So it might be interesting to have another company come in and do the official events. I wonder if CBS sort of looks at something like Star Wars Celebration, which is very much kind of an official Star Wars convention they do. They used to do it every 2 years. Now they do it every year. And that's where they, do a lot of their announcements and stuff. And if Star Trek is planned out to 2027, then they're going to need, that kind of venue to continue to sort of push that out. And maybe it could be a little closer than Las Vegas because that is a long way to travel.
Maybe it'll be Toronto. That's where everything is.
Toronto, Chicago, New York, Boston, DC, you name it. I'll be there wherever. If they're, my guess is I probably will continue to do Las Vegas, and I probably will do whatever the official convention is, because I did that in 2016 when they had STLV and they had Star Trek Mission New York, even though they were only about 3-4 weeks apart from each other. I ended up going to both, and I think I would probably do the same for an official Star Trek convention too, and Las Vegas, assuming that experience remains comparable to what it's been the last 10 years that I've been.
I could use a trip to Vegas, so I'll be going to both too if that happens.
All right, well, we've talked about the facts. And now let's speculate on what's going to happen in the future of Star Trek.
You make some very good points, Captain. But it's still all speculation and theory.
So each week, I and my guest give you a wish or theory we're nurturing about any of the shows or the future of the franchise. So Jen, let's hear your theory or wish for this week.
Okay, as always, it's a theory and a wish.
All right, let's
because,
do it.
Why would I want to theorize about things I didn't want to happen?
Exactly.
So this is actually, we're actually going to be talking about the Section 31 show.
Okay.
Because actually on WeeklyTrek a few weeks ago, you mentioned a piece of news that I hadn't heard, which was Alex Kurtzman mentioning about Section 31 that Craig Sweeney was involved in developing the Section 31 show. And that has changed my entire view on what I thought the Section 31 show was going to be like in a very, very positive way.
Okay, tell me more.
Okay, I'm a huge Craig Sweeney fan because I'm a huge fan of his show Limitless. He was the creator, showrunner, and writer on Limitless, which is...
Wasn't that a movie?
It was a movie with Bradley Cooper, and then they developed it into a television show.
Oh, gotcha.
On CBS. It was considered, I guess, like an FBI procedural show.
Uh-huh.
But it really wasn't. It was genre bending. It was subversive. It was hilarious. And it flipped the movie. If you've seen the movie, it's nothing like the movie. It completely flipped the script on the movie. It's in the same universe. Bradley Cooper was a character in the show.
Oh, that's funny.
So yeah, but it completely flipped on its side. And Craig Sweeney, man, we know him in the Star Trek universe already. He actually was the writer for the episode of Discovery, Context is for Kings.
Yes, that's right.
Which is one of the best Discovery episodes, in my opinion.
Yep.
But the way he goes about it. Okay, so for the Section 31 show, I thought it was going to be a drama, Black Ops, CIA type procedural, drama, just based on like what Discovery was, I guess. You know what I mean? But if Craig Sweeney is the one developing this show, we are in for such a fun ride. I don't even know how to describe it. I really recommend watching Limitless Even if you're not a fan of I'm not necessarily a fan of like procedurals, like FBI procedurals, but this is like, it's episodic. Like there's a case of the week, but Craig Sweeney said in one article about Limitless that he tried to show one thing every episode that has never been on TV before. That has never been done on TV before. And he did it. He somehow managed to do it in every episode of this show. And I kind of feel like if we get this version of a Section 31 show, sure, it's going to be like a Black Ops, case by case, episodic, but it's just gonna also have just this, it's gonna be built. He built Limitless on the charisma also of the star of the show, Jake McDorman, and who's just really charismatic character. And Craig Sweeney knew how to develop a show around that. And his star is Michelle Yeoh, Mira Georgiou, and building around her a show that is Star Trek, but also a Black Ops procedural, but also just like a genre bending, funny, subversive, irreverent. I just my hopes now for the Section 31 show are just now sky high. I just think it's going to be not what we expected.
I'm sold. That sounds great.
Yeah, it just moved up the Section 31 show to me as like one of the things I'm most excited about. It's going to be so good. So my theory is that the Section 31 show is going to be awesome. I know it's a pretty broad theory. But I just think it's going to be more than what you expect. I don't think we have to worry as much about, I know some people are worried about maybe like Mira Georgiou being like a hero, quote unquote.
Yeah, right.
Even though, we know her history, everything she's done. I don't think we have to worry about that. I don't think they're going to forget about that. I think that, you know what I mean? I think it's going to be part of the show, part of the themes of the show. And I just think it's going to be awesome.
Well, so far they have managed to turn me around on each of the shows they've announced that I've been like, I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah.
Lower Decks, when they first announced it, I was like, I don't know how I feel about that. And I freaking love it. Prodigy, I was like, I don't know how I feel about that. And then they announced Kate Mulgrew was coming back. Section 31, I was like, I don't know how I feel about that. And now, that's I will be honest, I have not seen anything Craig Sweeney has done. So to me, it's just a name on a page. Yeah. But that is a very exciting prospect. And, they've 2 for 2 so far on turning me around and making me excited. I think they can probably make it 3 for 3.
Oh, yeah. I think they're, Kurtzman's 7-year plan or whatever. I think it's pretty detailed. I think he's got a good plan.
Well, my wish this week is a listener submission. This one comes from Michael at MichaelAngie on Twitter, who wrote to us to say that now that Discovery has moved to the 31st century, he wants to see some Enterprise aliens in the 3rd season. So we've seen in the trailers, and then we saw in the first episode of the season, we saw an Andorian, we saw an Orion, we saw a Cardassian, we saw a Lurian, we saw a Betelgeusian, which is a Star Trek motion picture deep cut, according to the Ready Room. And Michael's wish is that in addition to seeing some of those Deep Space Nine aliens and TOS aliens, that we finally see one of these Enterprise aliens on a later Star Trek show. So Denobulans or Xindi were 2 that he suggested, and I would love to see a Denobulan, and I would love to see a Xindi. There actually was one of the Lower Decks animators. This was sort of being passed around before the show premiered, actually even before the first trailer had dropped, had a little portfolio up online, and it had some Lower Decks artwork in it, which included a Xindi reptilian ensign in Starfleet. And so I kept sort of thinking maybe we would see that at some point in the season, but we never did. So let's do it. I'd love to see a Denobulan, and I'd love to see a Xindi in Discovery season 3. Jen, what do you think?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the insectoids, the aquatics, of course. Love to figure out a way to see them. The Denobulans, I think there's a good chance we'll see some of those. I mean, maybe the Denobulans. I think are would be a pretty obvious choice for them to do. Like a pretty easy thing for them to update. I think. to their style of makeup. I think that'd be really cool. But yeah, something different. Because especially because like the insect, you know what? I would like to see the insectoids, especially. I'm deciding because it'd be interesting to see how they do it with the modern technology versus like the 90s.
Yeah,
CGI.
right. That early 2000s
cool.
CGI is a little ropey these days.
They were still pretty scary.
Oh, totally. Super creepy.
Very creepy. But I'd like to see it. I like that. That's a good wish. And I think you will. I think we will. I mean, especially like they're doing deep cuts like Beetlejuicean.
I think so. That's my best guess.
They said Beetlegeisian. I'm like, well, it's Beetlejuice's planet. It's Beetlejuicean. You just had to deal with it sounding stupid. But yeah, so if you're like, I like that though. I like you pepper in the deep cuts and also give us the, classics. And I like that. That's a good theory.
Do you have a theory or a wish for Discovery, Picard, Lower Decks, or the future of the franchise that you'd like to share? Tweet them to me at WeeklyTrek, and I might feature your theory in a future episode. Well, that's all the time we've got for this episode of Weekly Trek. Thank you so much to my guest, Jenn Tifft, for joining me today. Jen, how can people contact you if they want to continue the conversation?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter. I'm at EditQuarks, and you can find my podcast as at SnapTrek.
And you can find this show on Twitter at WeeklyTrek and me at Alexander C. Perry. And if you enjoy the show, please consider leaving us a 5-star review on your podcast player of choice. And please check out some of the other great shows on the Tricorder Transmissions. And if you like our shows, please also consider becoming a Patreon of Tricorder, which you can find at patreon.com/the Tricorder Transmissions. And lastly, if you're looking for Star Trek news on the internet, I hope you will turn to trekcore.com. Well, thank you, Jen. Thank you to all of my listeners. And until next week, live long and prosper.